Grammar Girl here. I'm Mignon Fogarty, and you can think of me as your friendly guide to the English language. Writing, history, rules, and cool stuff. Today, I have a segment about the phrase pitch black, another segment about frankincense and myrrh, and a Familect story about going to the bathroom. Before we get started, I have a quick announcement. We're going back to one episode a week. I've been doing the twice-a-week experiment for almost a year, and even though I love being able to bring you more tidbits and meaty middles about language, it's also just a little much for me, and it turned little things like getting a cold into big problems. So I was faced with having to hire more help if I wanted to keep up this schedule, and ultimately I decided I just want to keep my life simple. I'll also be doing fewer interviews. I have a great one already recorded for early January, and then I'll probably do one every 2 or 3 months going forward. So that's the deal. And if you're a new listener and you just had to listen to all that, I'm sorry, bad timing, and welcome. You love language, we love language. Let's get started. If you're a listener in the Northern Hemisphere, this Saturday will be the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year. It's so dark. If you live there, solstice comes every year on December 21st or 22nd, the day when the path of the sun is the farthest south from that hemisphere. If you live in the other half of the world, it comes on June 20th or 21st, when the sun is the farthest north from you. Either way, that day has the least daylight and the longest night. If you look outside that evening, especially if it's cloudy, you might think to yourself that the sky is pitch black. Then, if you're like me, you start wondering what pitch is and if it's really black and where that phrase came from anyway. Here's the scoop. Pitch is indeed a black or very dark brown substance. It's created from distilling wood tar. That's the resinous goo that drips from some coniferous trees. It's been used for centuries to caulk the seams of ships and to waterproof other types of wood. Pitch is an ancient word. It can be traced back to the classical Latin word pic, P-I-C, and it's probably even older than that because it shares the same Indo-European root as the same word in ancient Greek. Its first use in English, at least as recorded by the Oxford English Dictionary, dates all the way back to Old English. The phrase black as pitch appears later in the 1300s, and the adjective pitch black appears yet later in the 1500s. The spelling at that time occasionally and probably accidentally reflected the Latin version. A Scottish poem from the time describes the night as being, quote, grim and ghastly and pick black, unquote, spelled P-I-C-K as opposed to pitch black. By the way, the verb to pitch sounds the same as the noun and is spelled the same, but it has a different root word. The Middle English peach, spelled P-I-C-C-H, which is probably related to pick, and I'm sorry also I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, P-I-C-C-H. Just a reminder that not all words that look the same have the same origin. Long story short, your tidbit for today is that something pitch black is intensely black or dark. Think of a piece of black velvet held under the covers in a darkened room. That captures the feeling of pitch blackness. That segment was written by Samantha Enslin, who runs Dragonfly Editorial. You can find her at dragonflyeditorial.com or on Twitter as dragonflyedit. And now onto frankincense and myrrh. Christmas time is almost here. The Christmas story tells of the baby Jesus being visited by 3 kings who brought gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. We all know what gold is, but in our tidbit for today, we'll explain what the other 2 are. Let's start with frankincense. It's a resin that's gathered from the boswellia trees, specifically the species B. frarana, B. sacra, B. papyrifera, and B. serrata. They all grow in the dry mountainous regions of India, North Africa, and the Middle East. The resin of these trees has been used as incense in religious ceremonies for centuries. It's the sweet citrusy smell that can still be found today in Roman Catholic and Eastern Orthodox churches. Throughout history, it's also been used as makeup, for embalming dead bodies, and as a medicine. Ancient texts describe it as a remedy for everything from ringworm to bronchitis. The word frankincense comes from Old French. It's a mashup of franc, meaning candid and unreserved, and encense, E-N-C-E-S, meaning, well, incense. In this case, the adjective franc seems to have served the meaning of high quality. Thus, frankincense refers to top-shelf incense. Myrrh is also a gummy tree resin. This one comes from African and Arabian trees of the genus Comifera, especially C. abyssinica and C. myrrha. Myrrh was highly valued in ancient times. It was used to make fancy perfumes, incenses, and cosmetics, and it was also used as medicine. In fact, myrrh is mentioned more frequently than any other plant in the writings of Hippocrates. He was the ancient Greek physician and author of the Hippocratic Oath, the ethical code that even today guides the behavior of physicians. The word myrrh was borrowed from the classical Latin myrrha, M-U-R-R-A, which describes the comifera tree. It's believed to have a Semitic base, the Hebrew word mar, M-A-R, meaning bitter. And myrrh does indeed give off a sharp, piney odor when burned. So that's your tidbit for today. The Magi who were said to visit baby Jesus brought him gold and tree sap. But it was sap that was highly valued at the time, both in religious ceremonies and as a healing medicine. Both segments today were written by Samantha Enslin, who runs Dragonfly Editorial. You can find her at dragonflyeditorial.com or on Twitter as DragonflyEdit. Today's episode is brought to you by Hallmark Cards. The holidays can get a little hectic. You know what I do when I need a break from detangling lights and staggering through department stores? I like to think about how grateful I am for my friends and family, so I sit down with some tea, my favorite pen, and a stack of Hallmark cards. I write notes about the past year, and I wish the people I love all kinds of good stuff in the year ahead. I let them know how glad I am they're part of my life, even if they live far away. And I know that when my Hallmark cards show up in the mail, they're going to put a smile on their faces. That's the best feeling of all. So give it a try and see what a card can do. Visit hallmark.com/grammar to shop for holiday cards for everyone on your list. And use the promo code GRAMMAR to get 20% off your card purchase. Finally, I have a Familect story and some other comments from Rita, and I love this one because it's about sign language.
Hi, Grammar Girl. This is Rita. I listen in Connecticut, and I just heard your segment regarding the young man that was raised by wolves. I never knew that story before, but it did make me think my husband and his 3 brothers were raised by parents who were deaf. His mother lost her hearing to deafness, secondary to she had rheumatic fever, and his dad was born deaf. So they had a tutor come into the house when the oldest child was born, someone that could sign and hear. And she lived in the house for 2 years so that the children would learn to speak. And then it was kind of passed on. And this is back in the day when they didn't have all the symbols like they do today. They did, everything was mostly spelled out. Anyway, the little Familect story is they had their own little thing for needing to use the bathroom, and they would hold their nose. And the proper way to do that, you would actually, I think, rub your stomach or like a symbol of washing. But their little family thing was holding their nose. Love your podcast. Take care. Bye.
Thanks, Rita. That's so cool about a sign language Familect. I never thought about it, but of course, it makes perfect sense that they would exist. If you want to share your family dialect story, the story of a word or sign your family and only your family uses, leave a voicemail at 83321-4GIRL, and you might hear it on the show. And be sure to tell me the story behind it, because that's always the best part. Before you go, I want to remind you about my Better Writing video course at LinkedIn Learning. It's 17 short videos on basic writing topics like active voice, commas, and bulleted lists. The feedback has been great, and there's a good chance you'll be able to get it free through your university or county library or your corporate LinkedIn account. And you also get free access if you're a U.S. veteran. So check it out. That's Grammar Girl's Quick and Dirty Tips for Better Writing at LinkedInLearningandLynda.com. I'm Mignon Fogarty, better known as Grammar Girl. You can find me at the home of my podcast network, quickanddirtytips.com. Thank you to my producer, Nathan Sams. That's all. Thanks for listening.